They always say the third time's the charm. We are 20 minutes into this podcast and we haven't recorded a thing. So just a quick recap. We started this podcast already. We had this schedule. We've been working on it for a few weeks. Electricians called about an hour ago, said, hey, we're on our way to your house. And I was like, okay, sounds good. But they're remodeling the podcast room. So it's going to be awesome. I'm excited about it. It's going to be super cool. But they disconnected the power and we have no power. So we switched to the iPad. So we started recording on the iPad for the last 20 minutes and they disconnected the Wi-Fi and we had to start all over. So I'm going to do a third introduction and we're going to start this thing over. But again, it's been a fun experience already. Matt's super cool. But I'm going to introduce you real quick, Matt, again. So Matt and I've been following Matt for quite some time now online. Seen a lot of his lizard marketing stuff, and then I see him on the Potomac group stuff and his YouTube channel. They were out in Denver at Pest World, and got to chat with him inside Pest World a little bit. And then we all had dinner together. Didn't know we were having dinner together. Got there, and Matt was there, and sat across from Matt and just listened to him talk. And then I just loved his energy. I loved his vibe. Like he's a great person. He's a great dad. I loved everything about him. Like I have got to connect with this kid. I was like, I got to become friends with this guy. He's just super cool. He's genuine and just a really good, really outstanding guy. And glad to have you in the industry. So Matt Rogers, Lizard Marketing, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, what's interesting is I'm actually really grateful that this friendship has kind of come from that dinner experience because that restaurant was weird as shit. It was so weird. They had like projected Celine Dion on the wall singing My Heart Will Go On, like with this performance art. I normally like hit the nail on the head with restaurants, but I had a lot of trouble.
Oh, that was your choice?
It was. Paul was so like mortified. I was embarrassed to have him there when we got there. He's so judgmental to me.
The food was very good. I'll give you that.
It was. Company was good. Food was good. Celine Dion was weird.
That was weird. And the company was better than the food.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And for the record, how tall are you really?
I'm 5'10". I thought you were 5'10".
Yeah, I'm 6'1".
You are 6'1". You're 6'1" on my mind.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny. So, first question for you, Matt. If you and I are a junior in high school, who is Matthew Rogers in high school? Because
we're reliving this moment, I'm having to relive these traumatic experiences in my life, okay? In high school, I was the skinny fat nerd, okay? And so I was ducking my bullies down the hallway, right? I was typically cornered in a bathroom, probably getting my head in the toilet from one time to another, and looking for what sounds like were guys like you that were athletic but still pretty cool, and I could kind of use them as a meat shield from time to time should the need arise. I was a dork, and I actually pegged you once you were starting with I was an athlete stuff. I pegged you to be one of the people that was shoving my head into the toilet, but it sounds like that wasn't the case.
Yeah, no. So like I said, in the last little recording we did there, I was like friends with all the friend groups. So I was the athlete jock who hung out with the football players, wrestlers, basketball players. But then like I was in chorale, which a lot of people don't know, which is advanced choir. I had like that whole group. It was a whole totally different group.
Full of people like me.
Yeah. So I was hanging in the band kids kind of hung out with the chorale kids. So I was like kind of friends with everyone. So like when my jock friends would pick on my other friends, like I'd be the one who would stick up for those guys. Even though like I was a smaller kid. I was like that little Jack Russell Terrier, small, but like very vicious.
Small but mighty.
Exactly. So like, I was probably more bark than bite because I wouldn't actually do anything, but I would stand up and I'd get in their face and they'd be afraid of me because they thought that I was actually going to do something. And then I always had bigger friends than me too, so that was always a win.
Guys like you were the reason that guys like me survived high school. So thank you. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it. But high school was so much fun. Like I enjoyed every minute of it. I don't miss it by any means, but I had a lot of fun when I was there for sure.
I took one friend with me into life. Outside of high school, that's it.
Yeah, me too. One of my best friends, a graduate, again, he's probably the only friend, other than a select few maybe, that came along for the ride. We all just go different places, and it's just like we go start these businesses, and it's just hard to relate with.
Oh yeah, the older you get. Have you ever gone back to a reunion?
Unfortunately, I have not. I shouldn't even say unfortunately. No, I have not. They've been invited every year, and it's the same. I don't want to, I'm not even talking about, but it's the same people doing the same things, and they're going golfing and getting hammered all day. This is not what I want to do with my time.
Not for me. No, wasting my time. Plus, I don't want to relive those experiences. So
you stay away from the bathrooms, all right, Matt?
Stay away from the bathrooms. Yep, I'll hold it. Thanks.
So I know you went off to college, and why don't you walk us through from when you graduated high school through college, and then how you got into the industry?
So my dad, one of the reasons I was probably picked on is because my dad was a PCO, right? So I was raised in this industry. And he started when I was a sixth grader. And so, in retrospect, I wish I could have sat myself down. If I could go back in time, I'd really talk to myself about how proud I am of my dad now versus what I thought about him then, right? But I didn't talk to a lot of people. People knew, but I didn't talk to a lot of people about, because in my mind, it was the equivalent of having a janitor for a dad, right? And so by the time I graduated high school and went to college, we were still living in the same double wide that I had grown up in from sixth grade to my senior year, right? And so I don't want to paint a horrible picture. I had a absolutely magical childhood experience growing up in the wide open. We were running around. We had a little outdoor pool situation. Dad built piecemeal go-karts in his shop, and we would race them around the yard, and they'd catch on fire and all kinds of amazingness, right? I had a great childhood, right? Not so much high school, but I left to college my double wide that I'd grown up in. And it's the funniest thing, because I would come home on a break for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or fall break or spring break or whatever. And I would have to find out where my dad was living, because every time I would come home from college, he'd be living in a newer, bigger house. And that's when it started to click on me, what exactly is going on with this pest control stuff? And so he had, by the time, I graduated, I got my master's degree, and my dad, as the story goes, had pitched me to come and work for him 10 times. And it was the 10th time that I said yes. I tried to avoid, we had kind of a contentious relationship growing up, so I tried to avoid the prospect of working with him. But I said yes on the 10th time. He was looking for social media, somebody to manage his social media, and he was trying hard to figure out what the heck social media meant. This is the advent of it. PCOs were not exploring the space at all. And so it's electronic word of mouth, Matt. I need help. I don't understand the blah, blah, blah. And he asked me, and I was like, you know what? Okay. This was at the time, actually. I was a teacher at the time. It was during that housing crisis. And every summer I was getting fired, right? Or I guess laid off. And then they would rehire me at the beginning of the new school year. And that happened for 3 years, right? And so this very scary time, I was opinionated and dogmatic. I just wanted to serve the world and help these kids. And I was at an underprivileged school, and I loved it. And it was he's my favorite boss that I had in my life, was at that time, right? But my dad was like, you're throwing your life away, making $28,000 a year. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Come work for me. And actually, the third time that I got let go, but was going to get rehired at the beginning of the new school year, my wife was pregnant with my daughter. And I was like, I can't, it's not wise for me for this, right? Katie was working at a big job at the bank. She had a lot of weight on her shoulders to provide, because I was being in my feels about educating kids, right? And so I took my dad up on it. At the time, he had gotten the company to $8 million.
So if you haven't heard about GorillaDesk yet, it's a super sick software. It's actually made by one of my really close friends, Chris Moreshi. So Chris built GorillaDesk to help streamline his own personal business over 10 years ago. But now GorillaDesk is used by over 4,000 companies. And today it's become one of the most premier platforms in our industry. So what's really unique about GorillaDesk is that it's a simple all-in-one solution that's really easy for your team to use. GorillaDesk offers a seamless onboard experience and best-in-class support with no additional cost. It's all included in your subscription. Inside the software, you'll find a whole suite of features features: scheduling, invoicing, routing, and sales pipelines, integrated VoIP, text messaging, and pretty much all the automation you're going to need, and much, much more. So if you guys are still relying on paper or spreadsheets or fighting with an old software, I highly recommend that you guys check out Gorilla Desk. So we have a link in our description. Click on that and it'll take you right to their free trial. Now let's get back to the show. And this is like over what? It's like 15, 20 years?
2012, yeah. So he started in 93. By the time I jumped in 2012, he had gotten it to $8 million.
He's about 18 years deep. Now the business is starting to pay off.
Yeah. And this is, no digital marketing, no social media, none of that stuff. People's experiences are so much faster, so much different than his, right? But I converted his whole marketing budget into digital marketing over the course of about 1 to 2 years.
And in 2012, Matt, is that when things are just coming online?
That's when the first time I noticed. I mean, every time, eventually, I thought it was weird that my dad was buying all these like classic cars. And I thought it was weird where my dad was living. Like I still don't, I have a real rough time relating to my dad in this particular kind of era that he's in, because the formative years in my mind are in the double wide, right? And in the shop that was sweeping the shop and reeking of gasoline, right? And so it's still kind of hard for me to relate, but his wealth was growing. And by the time I started to pay attention, I was like, wait, what's going on? And that's when this thing happened inside of me where all of a sudden, especially as a father of 2 at the time, I really started to appreciate how much work, how much time he had put in, how far he'd come by himself, right? By himself for his family, right? And so through digital marketing, we went from $8 to $28 million in 6 years, right? And then we sold to Anticimex in 2018. And we were with Anticimex I was with them for a couple of years just before the pandemic. And that's kind of my experience in our world.
So a couple of things that I'm a big Patrick Bet-David fan. I don't know if you follow him at all, but he's awesome. But he says this about fathers. First, there's 3 phases of the son looking at his father. First, you idolize him, and then you demonize him, and then you humanize him. But it's so true.
It's true. It's very true. I hate it when that shit's right. Because when you're young and you're thinking, I've got everything figured out, and then you realize, no, he really had everything figured out, and I need to study a little bit more.
Yeah. So then I know you told me like about your, we were talking, my daughter's 14, you have a 15-year-old son. He's getting to that age where he's kind of starting to attitude.
I'm getting demonized. That's exactly what's happening. Oh, yeah. I'm in the middle. I've been asking a lot of dads. That's what was happening at dinner that night, right? I was asking, getting advice. Is he going to come back to me? I feel like we're breaking up. Like he doesn't like me anymore. I'm not the coolest guy in the room anymore. What's going on? I mean, he looks like a homeless athlete with like disheveled hair all the time. And his vocabulary has diminished to like, yeah, huh, what? Yeah, no, huh, what? That's it. Like, that's all I can get out of this kid anymore. And we were like best buddies, like the whole ride up. Do you know what I mean? So I'm at the demonization. And I hope he comes back around, because if me and my dad can figure it out, my God, I surely do hope me and Elliot can figure it out. We have gone through some stuff in his 15th year. That is for damn sure.
Yeah. And so he said he played sports or something like that, right?
Yeah. So he is a cute kid, right? He also made the varsity soccer team in his freshman year. So all these girls are like, oh my God. Like, and he gets his first, like his own first personal cell phone as he went back to high school. And so now he's like connected with the way that kids talk. This makes me sound old, but I feel old these days. Okay. The way these kids talk in like group chats and shit and TikTok and Snap and all that, right? It's insane to me. I will go to open his phone up sometimes and he'll have like 200, 300 notifications inside of these groups, right?
And all they are is like snaps of their forehead.
All it is. Bro, that's happening on your kids too? I thought my kids was weird. Oh my God. That makes me feel so better. I thought that I should like have him see someone. Like, we need to get you counseling. Why do you have pictures of people's foreheads? I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, it's just a thing. My stepson, he just graduated last year. He's playing baseball in college right now at Lakeland College. But for the last 3 or 4 years, that's all he's done too. He's like these stupid Snapchats of his head and his arms. I'm like, I just don't get it. Like, what's the point?
Elliot's making stickers out of them and he's sending them around to people. Yeah, it's crazy. Kids are weird. I've crossed the Rubicon. Okay, I'm at the place where I don't want to relate anymore. I think your music sounds like trash. I sound like my dad. I think your music sounds like trash. I think you look ridiculous with that outfit, right? I can't take you out in public looking like that. Would you please put your dishes in the sink? Like, I sound like my dad constantly right now. It's terrible.
For sure. So what school did you go to, Matt? Or where'd you go to college?
I went to Sun Valley High School. It's out in the country, man. Cornfields as far as you could see, right? People legit drove. I'm not making this up. People legit drove their tractors to high school, right? It's a Union County. It's one of the counties just outside of Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte proper, where we live, right? I went to college at UNCC. That's where I met my wife. And kind of at the time, I'm the second college grad in our family now. My baby brother just went through ASU pretty recently, but I was the first one to go. And it's funny looking back now, because at the time my parents couldn't afford to not put me on their taxes for the tax break when I was in college, but they also couldn't afford to help me. So I got out of college just before they were wealthy and could have paid my damn college with like a whole bunch of loans and shit. I don't have it's a real struggle for me. My dad was crazy successful by virtue of the work that he put into it and his mindset for marketing, which obviously genetically kind of rolled down the hill. He grew the hell out of that company, and people still talk about it. It's funny.
Yeah. What did you go to school for?
I went to school for graphic design. That's my undergrad. And then my graduate degree was education. I was a teacher in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system for about 4 years.
Gotcha. So when you get into you come back to your dad's company, you ask you 10 times, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go figure out this marketing thing. Did you have any idea other than graphic design, like what marketing was?
I knew the front end of marketing. When you're a graphic designer, if I'm a graphic designer for your company, my job is to make your shit look great, right? I was super blessed. Shout out Mike Pinkney. I'm going to give you shout outs to the end of my days. That was my digital marketing partner for 11 years. Okay. I vetted 2 marketing companies to work with us at Killingsworth, and Mike Pinkney was the guy I went with. I'll be honest with you. It was because he felt so eager. He felt like real eager, like when he's sitting across the table. He was like captivated with every word I was saying. And I was like, all right, I trust you. Let's do this, right? It was weird though, looking back. But I'm so glad, because for all 11 years, everything I learned how to do, I learned from him, from the trends that were going on in the industry, to how to calculate and report on cost per lead, to how to forecast, to how to channel all of your lead sources so you know what's working and what's not working, what valve you need to crank up and what valve you need to shut off. Like, I had the best experience with him. Not many people have that experience, bro, especially people in our industry. People that come to work with us at Lizard have like hardcore digital marketing company PTSD. Killingsworth was a bubble. Dad didn't fraternize with people in the industry, right? We grew it to 36 on the PCT top 100 before we sold, right? And Dad didn't he goes, why the hell would I sit around and tell a bunch of guys I don't know their shit smells like roses? That's what he used to say all the time. So we didn't talk to people, and I lived in a bubble, like a little ecosystem. And Mike Pinkney was my only out, right? And I had the best experience working with him, and the kind of partnership that he provided me is the kind of thing I love providing for the clients that I get to work with now. Right. And then that like exploded when we sold to Anticimex, because shout out Anticimex, at least at the time, their whole East Coast team was fantastic. Stacy, she's still there. At Turner, she's such a boss lady, and I felt like I was learning something every time I spent time with her. Miranda, nobody channeled their lead sources better than Miranda. And Jason, he's out of Jersey. You couldn't throw an obstacle at that guy that he couldn't figure out. And that was the first time that I ever worked with other people like me that was doing digital marketing for pest control companies at a big scale. Right. And so we were like, and I couldn't, you know how it is. I couldn't talk to anybody from ops and get them to understand me, especially from a marketing perspective. When I was the VP of marketing at Killingsworth and Anticimex, I felt like I was always having to explain myself because nobody could speak my language. Right. When I got into Anticimex, all of a sudden I'm talking to people and we're all speaking Japanese together. And it was fantastic. I learned so much. At the time, Anticimex was across 75 countries. So I was working with and talking to digital marketing people like me from like across the world. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then from your dad's point of view, grew up 28 million. How did that acquisition come about? Do you remember it all?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So you can go to YouTube right now. People that are watching your podcast should go to YouTube and you can search drunk driver on 601. You're going to see this little brown sedan swerving around on a backcountry interstate.
So drunk driver
on 601. Okay, while you're looking, I'll tell the story. So I show up to work one day. It's completely normal, right? And everybody's huddled outside of, had a big warehouse. Dad moved us into a new complex that had, an incredible, beautiful commercial office and 10,000 square feet of warehouse space. Okay. Now I think that office was 10,000 square feet and the warehouse was 3 or 4 times the size of that, right? It was bananas, right? You used to have to do segways out in the warehouse. It was crazy. So I'm walking in, everybody's huddled around my brother's phone, who was the VP of ops at the time. And we were supposed to be going into a meeting. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Right. And they're all looking at my brother's phone and they see this video. And it's this guy swerving all around on 601. I'm like, what are we looking at? You guys need to get in there. Dad's going to be furious if we don't start this meeting on time and whatever. And Andrew goes, do you know who that is? And I was like, no, and I won't say who it is, but it was one of our sales guys. Right. It was one of our, we had 9 sales guys at the time. It was one of them. And he had gotten kind of hooked on some substances after his back surgery, right? And he wasn't in a company vehicle or anything like that, but he was on his way to pick up his kids who were swimming at a pool with friends. Did you find the video?
No.
I'll text it to you. But at the end of the video, he straight up pulls his Dukes of Hazzard, goes over an embankment, comes up and backflips into a tree. Okay. And was in a body cast for 6 months. It was incredible. So, Dad sees the video for the first time. And at that time he had 160 vehicles on the road, right? He used to say all the time, we do 10 clicks around the earth every month or every week, right? It's a lot of liability. And all of a sudden, Dad's mind shift completely switched. He went from wanting to hand this to me and Andrew eventually to, I'm going to sell this. And what we knew, I tried to talk him out of it. And my brother was super bummed because Andrew went straight from high school into the family business. I was the black sheep who's trying to escape, right? And so Andrew thought he was going to inherit this thing, right? Both of us knew once Dad makes his mind up and he gets this particular look on his face, it's game over. He's doing this. Everybody better get on board. And that's actually how I met Paul. And started one of the better, kind of relationships that I get to have in this industry, honestly.
Who finds Paul? You find Paul? Does he find Paul?
Dad found him. It's actually interesting because, they were in some type of webinar about, M&A, and Dad liked the answer that Paul gave to a question regarding, does branding have impact on the valuation of your company? And in my dad's mind, because he's so keen on marketing, right? People would recognize my dad's voice. That's how familiar it was in our market, right? They would recognize our dad's voice and they would say things like, get your killing's worth, right? In public, get the line at the grocery store kind of thing, right? And so the question in the group of the webinar was, does branding your brand increase valuation? And the moderator was like, no, it doesn't impact that. You really want to pay attention, blah, blah, blah. And Paul piped up and he's like, actually, that's wrong. Branding definitely affects your valuation. And Dad, of course, was like, I want to talk to you. So they started to have a chat offline. And that's how the two of them kind of met. That's how the story goes. And then I met Paul at a restaurant a few months later, and it was the first time. It was the weirdest dinner of my life, but obviously also one of the greater ones too.
Yeah, for sure. And then how long of a process was that from when the process started to when you actually sold?
If I remember right, it was 6 months. It was the worst 6 months because there are some people you can tell. There are some people that you can't tell. There are cards you have to keep close to your chest. You got to keep business as usual. And when you're going through the sale process, you have to be more than you were before to be seen as valuable too. But this is what I don't remember which recording I said this on in terms of how clean of an operation my father ran.
That was the first one, so you can repeat it.
Spoilers. My dad ran a clean operation. I've never seen anything like it in the industry, truly.
You said from sales to operations to marketing to everything.
All of it. He had he had things surgically measured. Okay. His profit margin was stupid. Okay. I believe it was 41% for pest control, right? Like net profitability at the time, right? Our annual average. So, and you're having a $28 million year. You had a great paycheck that year, right? I have a funny story there. I love throwing my dad under the bus there. But before I do, I remember the CEO of Anti-Cimex. At the time, Killingsworth was one of the larger platforms on the East Coast for Anti-Cimex, and it was going to cover both the Carolinas. The CEO, his name is Jarl. I forget his last name, and I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway. But he flew over to kind of see the operation with this whole like entourage of people in suits. And that was a really new and interesting, weird time for me because I'm like, what is this? This is pest control. Why are you dressed like that? Right. So all these guys are walking in and they've got their briefcases and they're looking around at the place. And Jarl sits down with my dad's P&L for the first time. My dad's P&Ls were laminated, page protected, and the binders that are like this thick, right? And the 6th of every month, we had to turn in our numbers. And on the 15th of every month, everybody reported to the meeting room to review the P&Ls. And we had gross profit measured per man per day, right? And Jarl looks at our P&Ls for the first time and literally says to my dad, and I was genuinely surprised. This is probably one of the more formative moments for me where I looked at my dad. He's like, you're not crazy. I'm sorry that I spent so much time thinking that you're crazy. But Jarl looked at my dad and he goes, these are the cleanest P&Ls I've ever seen for a company that we're acquiring. And I was like, shit, man. I've actually taken PCOs up to my dad's shop here. If you're ever in the Queen City, I'll take you up to look at his bar collection. And take you up to take a look at his P&Ls just so people can get a taste or a visualization of what they could be capable of, right? So many people in our industry get that like this pigeonholed mindset that what we have is what there is, right? Without like considering what the possibility are if you modified some things. Dad controlled everything according to percentages on the P&L, right? From the marketing spend, I was never over 6%, to salaries and wages, to gas costs, to chemical costs, right? He developed B&G guns with quick connect tips, and our branch managers would, our technicians weren't allowed to mix their own chemicals. Our branch managers would print the schedules of our technicians for the day. And then they would go and mix their chemicals for them according to the label and according to what the schedule was, and prepackage their B&G guns with their quick connect tips and load it onto the technician's trailer for them. And it was stored in-house. They weren't allowed to take their vehicles home. So, there's a reason his profit margin was what it was, but it was pretty nuts. I'll say this is one of my favorite stories, actually, for me and my wife. And one of the first times I realized how much money my dad actually made in pest control. I was working for him for a minute, and I was really grateful because I came from making $28,000 a year as a teacher, and I was grateful for how much money he was offering to pay me to do his marketing, right? And so I wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to take he and Debbie out, my stepmom, out for dinner. So me and my wife and Dad and Debbie, we go out to, I think it was something like Carrabba's or something like that. It was so lame. But we go out. And it's the first time I think that the check came, and I rushed out to grab the check, to see if I could snatch it from my dad at the table. And he looked surprised and so proud that his son reached across to grab the check. But just at the time that I went to grab the check, and I'm proud of myself too, and I'm signing the thing and making the tip and all that stuff, I get this like kick from my wife under the table. And I'm like, what? You know how it is when you're in a situation with your spouse and you've got to like silently communicate with each other, right? I'm like silently communicating with her. Why are you kicking me? Right? And she just gets this like incredibly annoyed look on her face. And I'm like, whoa, all right. So the waitress goes off, pay back. We do the hugs. Thank you. Everybody would jump in the car. I'm driving a Yaris, I think a Toyota Yaris at the time. Jump into our Yaris. And Katie spins around. She looks at me. And she goes, why did you pick up the tab? I was like, I was just trying to be nice. I wanted to tell Dad, thank you for giving me this job and allowing me to provide in this particular way for my family. She goes, at the time she was working in accounts payable and accounts receivable, right? She goes, do you know how much your father gets paid? And I had no idea. Dad never told us. Never. Okay. He kept his cards close to his chest. He didn't share his business with anybody. Only person that got a cut of the pie was his wife, right? That's it. Not me. not Andrew. And I was like, no. And she goes, I just cut him a check for $323,000. And I was like, for the year? And she's like, for the month. And I was like, what? What the fuck? Do you know what I mean? And after that, I mean, I really hesitate when the check comes. And I'm like, no, you're getting it. You're getting it forever.
Yeah. But even still, just like, even if you didn't pick up the tab, just the simple fact that you're offering, anyone who's listening to this, just go offer, even if you know they're not going to let you.
Oh, he let me, that punk.
But he was proud of you for doing it.
Yeah, he was. And I'm sure it paid out. I definitely paid out in the end. But that's the first time I had an understanding of how efficiently you could run a business and what that meant on the other side of all of the sleepless nights and all of the hard work and all of the, managing people, managing drunk drivers on 601, all that shit, how much that actually taxed him. It's funny because it took him about 2 years to come off the drug of owning a business, right? And he would drive us nuts for 2 years after that, like call us constantly, make recommendations and suggestions for how Anti-Semic should be doing things constantly. Anti-Semic at the time was a $1.4 billion company, right? Get out of here. They don't care what you think, Dad. Leave them alone. And so it took him a couple years, but finally when he came off, the one thing that he said, and this would be my encouragement for your listeners, the one thing that he said that always stuck with me was, he doesn't regret what he was able to accomplish. He regretted how much that he gave that took away from us boys, right? That's why one of the reasons when we came in, things seemed to get better because we were all kind of working towards this goal together. But he had a lot of regret at the end in regards to, not a lot, but he had some regret at the end of how much he gave to this versus gave to us. Because once the noise kind of quieted down around him, he realized that we, the five of us, were the most important things that he had going for him. Everything else stopped, right? And so that would be my encouragement for your listeners that are trying to grow their business to get ready. Don't forfeit the things in your life that are important on this journey. I know it's hard, and I think the scriptures say, let tomorrow's troubles come tomorrow, right? They'll be there. They're not going anywhere. If it's dinner time, get to the dinner table, right?
I agree with him.
So,
and that's one of my non-negotiable too. Like, I'm glad that I started the company when I was younger, so as my kid got older, I could spend more time with him. But that's one of my non-negotiables now. I just don't miss their stuff. So like last night, I flew into town late last night, but I made it home just in time for my daughter to go watch her first, varsity wrestling match. So like, I'm just not going to miss those kind of things.
So it's off the table. What are we even talking about? Yeah.
It's absolutely. So your dad, he goes and sells this thing. He's doing 28 million. And then how does his life change from there? Like, I know he had a hard time, but like financially, like what was it like? I know you see he's got a big car garage and his
car garage is stupid. The things that he has in there is also stupid. He texted me this picture one time. I was sitting at a staff meeting in Anti-Semics, okay? And I was excited to be, this is my first experience in a corporate world. I felt like a valuable member of the team, right? And he texted me this picture and he starts to call me and I silent decline him because I'm in this meeting. But I look at the picture. And he is standing next to Jay Leno in Jay Leno's car garage, talking about cars in this picture. And I'm literally like, what the fuck are you doing? And he goes, I'm in Jay Leno's car garage. I was like, clearly. All he does anymore is buy cars. He has a podcast for investing in cars right now. And he's traveling around with the love of his life, pickling their liver with wine. That's what they do. These days.
How old was he when he retired?
Good question. He's 20 years older than me, so he's 62. I am 42. He sold in 2018, so he was in his late 50s.
Oh wow! So he did it. He's young.
Yeah, he was a young man. It's funny, it's honest. Another point of advice I would give to you guys that are trying to grow to sell is when he stopped, you could tell. Like it was funny how. Age caught up with him when he was going through the motions of business and the vigor that is like involved in keeping a business afloat, sustaining a business, all this kind of stuff. There was like a youthfulness and a vitality to him. And when he stopped and things got quiet, that changed. You want to make sure that you're stepping into something new when you're stepping out of this, right? Don't stop completely, right? I'm not saying go start another business. I'm saying find something to give yourself to and give yourself to it. To prolong your health. He's working on this podcast now. And then what's interesting about that is his vitality came back, right? His excitement about things came back, so that's an encouragement I talk to people that are trying to grow to sell their business all the time.
That's awesome. So he sells the company, and then you're going to work with Anti-C-Mix for 2 years after that, correct? And then what happened through those 2 years? I loved every minute of it. Gave some people shout outs. What happened from there that things kind of fell apart?
Things fell apart. I don't think any of the people that are involved still work there, and I have a lot of respect for Anti-C-Mix, and I know probably some of them employees work there. So I'll keep it Disney, okay. But basically, I think one of the executives for the East Coast had gotten demoted and brought down to our platform level, which was already administratively heavy on the top. And I was administratively heavy. I was contracted for a great salary. I had a company car. I had there was a lot going for me, right? And so all these things were kind of written into my contract after the sale of the company. Dad wanted this to be for everything. My brother's still there, right? Still, he loves it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Gotcha.
And so basically this guy came down, and as soon as my contract was over, without getting into the details, the first opportunity they had to kind of trim the fat at the administrative level, they did. And that guy got let go, and the people that kind of helped him also got let go, which is interesting in retrospect. And they're running a completely different operation now, and I'm really excited for them. I'm really excited for my brother. I found out recently, I don't know what kind of numbers I can share, but through my brother's work at Anti-C-Mix specifically, they had grown something like 18 mil since I had been there, right? My brother is shout out Andrew if you're watching this. He's something else. He's a monster when it comes to operational efficiency and mergers and acquisitions for pest control companies. So really proud of him, really proud of the stuff that he's doing there. But that's what happened. And what I didn't know, here's some more tea, is as I was getting let go of that, we were all starting to use the word COVID for the first time, right? I think it was that December before. Yeah. So the December before, people were like, COVID has made it to the United States. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't care. I don't get flu shots. Me and my wife were placenta eating home birthers. Okay. And so, when it came to things like vaccines and all that kind of stuff, I literally gave my oldest son chickenpox from chasing down an old man with shingles. Okay. That's a true story. And so, when they talked about this new virus, it's like, we'll get microdosed, we'll be fine. But then the whole world shut down. Right. And this was 30 days before my adoption for my third child was finalized. And I was the only income provider for that. And so I built my first LLC trying to service pest control companies in the same way I had serviced Anti-C-Mix, and did everything I can to try to help them. But you know what it's like from a business owner's perspective. When the world shuts down, you've got to start protecting your margin. And so people start letting go of their marketing spend. And so I'm grabbing onto sand during the pandemic to try to make it work. My wife, shout out Katie, she doesn't watch these podcasts. I don't blame her. Not yours, but any podcast I'm on, I don't think she's ever seen one. She was cleaning Airbnbs to keep us afloat during the pandemic. I get a call. I finally got a job at Arusa Pest Control. Do you know those boys?
Of course I do.
Okay. Solomon was a friend of mine at the time.
Solomon Earhart?
Yep. And I was still looking for work, and I kind of weaseled my way onto his staff. I literally said, I'm actually a little shocked at you, Solomon. And he's like, why? I was like, I'm surprised you haven't offered me to come and do digital marketing for you yet. And he goes, I don't think I could afford you. And I was like, just put a number out there and let's see. Right. And I accepted the offer that he put out there. And I was with them for just a little while before I realized that they have some problems, big problems. The first P&L that I saw, this is shout out to all you door-to-door companies. Your P&Ls are fugly. Okay. You do not have 41% profit margin on your P&L. That ain't a thing. And so the first time I saw his P&L, I was like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And they started to get into looking to get acquired, right, through lots of services.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that was why. Yeah.
And I get a phone call. I walk into Christian's office. I don't know if you knew Christian. I was like, hey, my experience with private equity, I know how this kind of goes. I've got a family, I've got a wife and 3 kids. If you could just give me a heads up if you're looking to cut this apartment, I really would appreciate it. And he was so kind. I'll never forget his kindness. And he was damn near emotional, and he's not an emotional guy. Love you, Christian. But he said, I can give you till April. And I thought, that is generous. That's 8 weeks. I appreciate that. I will dot all my I's, cross all my T's. You will not have to worry about anything from me. And I walked back to my office. I texted my COO at the time. That was Andrew Beck. Miss you, buddy. And he came into my office. This is one of the last bigger conversations he and I ever had. He sat down. I texted him. I was like, hey, Christian gave me till April. And he came and sat down across from me. And he came from Anti-Simex too. That's how we knew each other. And he said, man, I wish you would have told me you were going to do that. I could have bought you some more time. And just as he said that, his phone rang, and it was my not yet business partner who said, we're doing this digital marketing company. We are only taking referrals. We're not publishing this. Do you know anybody? And Andrew Beck put the phone on speaker and slid the phone across the desk, and the rest is kind of history. So that's how I get to do what I do now for big companies, from middle companies, for small companies. It's been like a pretty wild ride these last couple of years.
Yeah. What actually happened to Andrew? I know it got into accident, but can you tell us a little bit what happened?
It kind of rocked. He was the kind of person. I mean, you could see Paul did a funny.
Kind of rocked the industry.
It did.
I just didn't know him.
Did.
Yeah.
Oh man, he was the kind of person that put the company first in most respects until it came to helping people. He was a networker, and if you ever needed help or a job, or you're looking for something, he knows someone who could help you get a position. He is known for helping people find work in this industry, right? One of the kindest, most hardworking people I had met. And one of the only reasons I stayed at Aruza, kind of given their fickle circumstance before they got bought, was Andrew Beck. Andrew Beck kind of gave me the assurance that he's going to figure this out and he's going to turn things around and all that kind of stuff. I believe he had some type of cardiovascular situation. Very sudden. He's young. I think he's like a couple months younger than me, right? And he's a wife and 2 kids. And Paul actually pulled together a GoFundMe, raised something like $80,000 inside of our community who would be a bunch of strangers giving their money to give to his family so that they can have, a little bit of breathing room while they try to figure out big life things. So he's a very special person, very privileged to get to know him. And the whole reason I'm even at Lizard is because of him, honestly. So
they just call. You're happen to be sitting there next to Andrew.
I had been fired 15 minutes before. I mean, laid off. Yes. That's how it went.
So Alan has the idea of Lizard?
Yeah. And in fact, it wasn't doing so hot. That's why he was looking for me, right? It wasn't doing so hot. They had a lot of trouble their first kind of launch, and he needed to get some new butts in the seats. And his then partner, David Gilmer, was the one who called Andrew Beck and connected me to Alan Draper. And we talked to each other for about 2 weeks before Alan offered me the partnership and the position. And I've come from a business that you give yourself to. Killingsworth was that place, right? This is different because at Killingsworth, we were going to inherit the business one day, but we didn't share in any of the ownership of the company. That solely belonged to my dad and my stepmom. And so it is definitely a different experience. It is a labor of love. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, honestly. And definitely not perfect at everything that we do, but I do love getting to offer people. I think we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, the same type of digital marketing experience that I had with my counterpart, Mike Pinkney. Shout out Mike Pinkney. I love you. To these other PCOs who all have PTSD with digital marketing companies who shall not be named. They who shall not be named. Don't be mad at me, please. Let's be friends. But they're all coming to me with like, F this, and skepticism about working with us. And then we've got to hit that proving ground those first couple of months to earn their trust, And
I probably know the answer already, but what makes you guys different?
One of the things that makes us different is our cost per lead, right? You measure these things as the business owner. I learned some very unique tricks from Mike Pinkney, my time at Anticimex, and my time building and some education for myself while I was doing my first LLC, right? And it turns out that's not happening everywhere else. We're able to get our cost per lead down somewhere, in some respects, 40, sometimes 50% cheaper than what they're paying at other companies. And that matters when you've got to have dependable leads in a sizable volume. When you can stretch your ad dollars out further, you may have a 40% closing ratio, which sucks. But you may have a 40% closing ratio for your inside sales team. And you can overcome that because you have cost-effective leads, right? Have you ever met Chase at Go Forth Pest Control?
No.
Worth isn't. Okay. I went to his little situation that he had a couple of months ago, and he said that it's 100% true. He said you can have a shitty lead and a good salesperson, and the good salesperson can close that lead. You cannot have a shitty salesperson close a good lead in the same ratio. You can't. And so we're just really lucky. We've kind of developed, we have a great partnership, a great friend at Google who actually comes from the pest control world as well. He's our counterpart on the other side. We're working on a project after I get off this podcast with you, actually. And we're able to get high quality, cost effective leads to our partners. Dependably, we forecast for our partners so they know how to hold us accountable to the money that they're giving us, right? And that's kind of what makes us different. We also don't handcuff our clients to us. We don't hold their websites hostage or some shit like that. Who thought of that? This is obviously not my experience. That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. It truly is.
I've actually been through that before.
Oh my God. I can't. And coming out of that, you've got these handcuffs to this sometimes bad performance, right? Sucks.
Terrible performance.
Yeah. And so we don't do that. We do everything and we give it to our clients and hope that they stay with us. That's kind of how I do it.
That was going to be my next question. Not you hold the website hostage, but what all do you guys offer there?
We're full service. So our bread and butter is paid search and SEO. Paul and I did an episode about how the landscape of SEO has shifted. I highly recommend all your listeners, go check it out. Because if you as a PCO, if you're not investing in hyper-local SEO content for your website and your Google business profile this year, you're not screwed, right? You're not going to be penalized, but you're going to see other PCOs accelerate much faster than you. I promise you, it's already happening, right? One of my partners, their LSAs performed 83% better this time than it did last year through the work that we do for our clients for SEO. Through the SEO work, LSA is a paid search function. Through the work that we're doing in SEO, it is improving the performance of their LSAs. They're becoming cheaper and they're doubling their impressions. 83% growth in LSAs, right? So we're full suite though. We're building sites for clients. We're doing social media. We do social media for Potomac, right? We'll do anything from a digital marketing perspective that we get asked to do. We'll do some media buying if that's what they need. We'll do it all. That's what Mike Pinkney did for me. That's what I like doing for other people. That's the only thing I know how to do. Yeah,
that's super cool. When you guys are doing social media, you're like helping them do video and everything?
We try to, but my best clients, we've talked about it. I talked about it on Bug Bucks, talked about it on Paul's podcast. My favorite clients are the people that are having fun with social media themselves, right? Telling their own story. That's what made my dad wealthy, right? His ability to relate to people and tell his story, right? In his weird redneck way that he did it. And it worked. It worked in this market. So yeah.
You said your dad was really good at marketing, right? What was his style of marketing?
We did digital marketing for sure. And if he would have gotten on things like TikTok and Meta, it would have exploded even more. But it wasn't what it is now then, right? So he was doing radio and we were doing broadcast and digital commercials and YouTube pre-roll commercials all over the place. And we invested heavily to give your people some perspective on the type of money we were throwing in. Because, PCOs can look like shit. You guys really can. Your stuff can look terrible. Okay. What was making us different, I feel like one of the things that I was able to contribute was I had a high standard, especially with my graphic design background, for how I wanted us to look. If I'm going to stick my name on it, this is going to look like a Coca-Cola commercial. I don't care that it's pest control, right? And so we were spending like sometimes $15, $16, $17, $18,000 on a 30-second commercial, a 15-second commercial, and a 6-second commercial, and maybe a variance of the three, right? And so we invested in them heavily. I remember our most successful campaign, which I didn't know this was going to be successful, honestly. We bought our first Super Bowl commercial. This was the year that the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, okay? Good old Cam Newton, back before he started wearing his grandma's scarf, okay? Back before he got weird. Shout out, Cam, I love you. But we bought a good commercial in the third quarter. And the commercial was, this is the first time we introduced my granddaughter, or his granddaughter, my daughter into the commercial. They were sitting, it had nothing to do with pest control. It was about customer service, okay? They were sitting at a tea table. My granddaughter's tea table was completely made up, and she's painting his nails. Oh no, she's painting his nails, and she needs to take a little break while they're drying. And she asks him if he wants to have a cup of tea while he waits for his nails to dry. And he says, that's really great customer service, and that's the commercial, right? And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to look at. I think it's still up on YouTube. And at the end of the commercial, he's got my daughter on his lap, and he says, if you want to see my granddaughter give me a full makeover, head on over to thebiggreenk.com and check it out. And we launched the B-roll and the makeover. My dad looked like a lady of the night from the 80s. Okay. Like he looked like a frosted eyes, big red lips, curlers in his hair, mess. It was fantastic. And our website really literally broke that night. With the traffic that made it to the site. And we had one of the best sales months ever. And I remember that night like sweating bullets, because when my dad found out that the website was down, he was going to lose his fucking mind. And I was like, Mike, you got to get the website back up, Jesus. And we worked until like 3 a.m. to make sure it was back up before my dad woke up.
Yeah, so they always say like your business is one marketing campaign away from doubling itself overnight. It
is. And so we did stuff like that all the time. We told the story of our family to the Charlotte Metro, and it resonated. People would ask him all the time, are your nails still green? You know what I'm saying? Do you still have that robot that your grandson gave you? All these questions. And are those really your grandkids? We would be in these city parades, and people would shout out to Dad like they recognized him, like they knew him in the market. And this is through a lot of time investing in brand messaging. So your PCOs that are investing in that are going to feel the return on that one day. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my earliest mentors told me from the very beginning, he said, it's not the best product that wins. It's the best known product that wins.
Facts. That's 100% facts. It could be a shitty product that's well known and it's going to win.
Yep. Just because everyone knows who you are.
Yeah. So true.
That's cool. So if you were to be starting, let's just go a new pest control company that we're talking about. All right, let's just say you're a couple of years in, you have some money to spend. Where is the first place you'd spend your money online with digital marketing?
You used to be able to separate it. You used to be able to say, I'm going to invest in paid search or I'm going to invest in organic search. I don't think you can escape it anymore. I think you have to do both together. Okay. For PCOs, if you're spending less than $3,000 a month on your paid search, you're pissing in the ocean, and you should let your company build up a little bit higher, right? Because I was on a call with the board for JP Morgan that own fund Rent-A-Kill in some respects, right? They dumped $85 million in the North American digital marketing market in 2024, right? So if you're spending less than $3,000 a month in your market, and you're in a contentious market like Charlotte, like Denver, right? Like Arizona, let your company grow organically a little bit. But you need to be investing in SEO, and you need to be investing in paid search, and you need to do them together, because your investment in SEO is going to augment the performance of your Google business profile, and it's going to augment the performance of your local service ads. And you'll see incredible returns. My favorite client, shout out Nate Sorensen. I love you. With Banner Pest Control. He jumped up from like $1.2 million when we started working together to 4.5 in the first 12 months that we worked together. He had a solid sales team. It wasn't his grandma or his friend's friend that was answering the phone call, or a good customer service lady, or the branch mommy answering the phone. It was a salesperson who was commissioned for the sale and ran that crap down, right? And he had an incredible year, and I can't wait to see his numbers for this year, because at one point in August, he was boasting an 8x return on investment in August, 11x return on investment for digital marketing in September. And so I'm looking for big numbers at the end of this year. So yeah, those are the two things that he did in our first 12 months. And it more than doubled the size of his company in that time. So
that's incredible. And then if you were to do anything offline, Matt, what would you do?
I've never been asked that.
Got you.
Yeah, you did.
Your dad, he was doing things like in the parade. You know, you brought that up. Like, it's small things like that are so easy that help your brand get recognized.
Guerrilla marketing for route density, especially if you're running door to door, is important. Okay. Make sure you're clover leafing, make sure that's a part of your SOPs. Incentivize your technicians to make friends, to tell stories, to take selfies with your customers. We told so many stories about happy customers that people just believed that everybody around us was just, whistling while they worked all the time. And obviously, as a business owner, it's not like that. But people believe that because we had contests for, we'll give you, if you can get us 10 selfies this week, we'll give you an additional $500 on your paycheck. Right. And we post them up on social media with a happy customer and shoot us a quick story. And you empower your technicians to tell the story of your company. You empower your technicians to grow your route density, and you're finding cost-effective ways to grow your business without having to rely on digital marketing.
Yeah, that's great. I love that advice. I know Paul mentioned something about route density a little bit. I know that your dad, he must have had some really killer route density. Do you know what your dad's market penetration was?
We had 34,000 clients in the Charlotte market. Okay. And so his trick was, and this is a trick for you PCOs out there, grow your Google business profiles. Okay. We had 10 Google business profiles and 10 branch offices wrapping around the 485 loop. Okay. So every time you set up a new office, you set up a geo fence of 50 miles. Okay. So set up new offices, and all we stored was chemicals. Nobody worked there, right? A desk for the branch manager where he could make, take a call if he was there, make some calls while he's there, but where the chemicals were stored and the technicians brought their trucks back every night. That's how he maximized routes. And he did it in very important places. This is important for you guys that are trying to grow your wealth too. He owned the buildings, and Killingsworth rented the buildings from him. So he's growing his assets. And when we sold to Anti-Cimix was renting from him. And when they stopped wanting to rent from him, he sold the buildings and made more money, right? Do that. Please do that. And make sure the building is located in a central place. You're going to get high traffic and visibility, right? It gives the presupposition to your market that, man, these guys are everywhere. I should reach out to them, right?
Yeah, great advice. I know we're probably going over time right now, but any last advice they'd like to give listeners? I mean, you've been dropping bombs for 2 hours now.
My advice for PCOs is just keep going, right? I know your days are hard sometimes. I can remember the look on my dad's face sometimes when he would look defeated at the dinner table or overwhelmed from the events of the day's work. But let me tell you something. That is not how that man looks today, okay? Keep going and keep pushing for this thing that you're working for, because there really is a payout in this particular market. The multiples really are good, and people really are looking for a good company with good route density that's run really well, just like yours, to assimilate into whatever it is that they're working on. And then you can head on down to Puerto Rico with Paul and hide from Uncle Sam down there for a while, or whatever you want to do. I don't care. But it really is out there and waiting for you. Just keep at it. Don't give up on yourself.
Cool, man. Well, again, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do for the industry. You're a stud. I can't tell you how proud I am of you for what you come through. It's been awesome to watch, and really cool. I appreciate you being here with us.
Oh, man, I'm so glad that you had me. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Later, Matt. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, obviously, but the podcast isn't free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends and your family. So please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about the business or your life by me or my guest, send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about any personal business coaching, check out our website at www.pestcontrolmillionaire.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again on the next one.